Good morning. This is the Courage Hour at 7 a.m. Pacific, Friday, February 11th. So I'm here alone, and that's okay because I have the courage to be a leader in this organization and to share my expertise about courage. So today I am speaking at a Polka Dot meeting. And my topic is the 4 C's of leadership. And the first C of leadership is courage. So it takes courage to step out and to do that. So we just had a new participant enter. So we're returning with Becky to our mastermind around courage. And courage being one of the 4 C's of leadership, and how it takes courage. In particular, it takes courage to change, and a leader has a responsibility to choose change for themselves as the environment changes. I mean, we've gone through a huge change the last 2 years in how we approach leadership and life, and it's taken a lot of courage to make the changes that we've had to make during the COVID-19 pandemic. So courage is number 1 on my list of leadership skills. So I'll open that up to a conversation about courage as leaders. And you, Beck, are the leader, one of the co-leaders of this organization. And so how has courage played a role in your and Suze's work as leaders?
I think the biggest thing from the view of like a co-founder and leading, something that has fully, like, we didn't have anything to go off of. Like when we created this space, like almost 3 years ago, like we didn't have any guidance on like how this would look because it was a new concept. We'd never heard it before. It was an idea, right, that we supported and started to grow from this idea, right, which you can relate to anything or a lot of things that, when we get these great ideas and we're like, oh, sometimes we just let them go. And then sometimes we have the courage to speak life to them. We breathe life into our ideas, and then we rally support. We find people to support our thoughts. And that takes courage to move an idea from our mind to breathing life to it and giving it form and sharing it with someone to see, what else is there. And that's really how this space came, is an idea. And then we kept having the courage to keep speaking more about, well, how is it possible? What could we do to take a step toward making it a reality and seeing how that works? So it takes a lot of courage to just, speak life to ideas that we don't know how they could turn out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's within that, your description of the courage that it took to do that. You talked about some of the other and very important concepts or C's of leadership, and that is creativity. Creativity is also one of the benchmarks of courage, and also collaboration. Working together with someone else to birth the idea, and then the courage to follow through with the creativity. And then the last one I'm going to talk about today is seizing opportunity, which the idea was there and you seized the opportunity to do that. So I might use OPWP as an example in my talk today. Hi, Kelly.
That's awesome. It's like I just wrapped it all up in a pretty 2-minute bow right there with that.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop the recording and so we will continue our discussion about courage and go forward. I can't, actually, I don't remember what we were talking about at the beginning of the time, but I know I posed a question and I think it was courage around leadership. So let's go back to that. Kelly, what have you got to add to this conversation?
I mean, courage with leadership, I guess. I mean, for me, it always comes back to trust, trusting yourself to, that you know what you know, that trusting yourself that whatever is said was meant to be said. You know, trusting that you can handle whatever situation arises. You know, asking for help when you need it, and that can be humbling sometimes. And so it takes courage to be humble enough to ask for help, or, you know, be open to suggestions or feedback. All those things take courage because they're vulnerable. So, you know, that's, you know, sometimes as a leader, you need to have hard conversations, and that takes courage. You know, and just be willing to, you know, be the one in charge.
Yeah, I love that, Kelly. And you brought up one of the C's that I hadn't talked about when we were talking before, and that's character. And you know, character can show up in conflict. It can show up in controversy. You know, it can show up in those difficult conversations by being open, being vulnerable, being transparent, and being accountable. You know, so character is one of those things that runs through leadership as well. It's one of those C's of how important it is to be who you are and to not compromise. Another one. Now, see how many C's there are when you talk about courage, and, you know, not compromise who you are to make a conversation easy or to avoid a conflict, because conflict is inevitable when you're a leader. And so that capacity to be vulnerable, like you're talking about, trusting yourself, being transparent, and character being a foundation of your leadership, so people know you're you and you're not being a fake, or you're not changing the conversation to go with that person or this person, but your character is stable and constant. So I think that trusting to be yourself is really, really important. So I'm glad you brought that up.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. But you can see how there's so many C's around around courage and around leadership, being courageous enough to be a leader, because the buck stops with you when you're in a leadership position, whether it's you and another person or a whole company. It's the same thing, a partnership or whatever, you know. So courage and leadership is really paramount, I think, to being successful.
Something I just pictured and realized, as you keep saying, like, there's so many C's, and then I wrote down on my paper C's of leadership, and when I wrote it down, I was like, oh, a C is open, and I was like, oh, that's
I'm adding that right now to my talk.
Yeah, so I was just picturing like how fun it is to realize like how important, you know, how much C's show up in leadership, and how, you know, a C is open. And that's a big thing about being in a leadership position is, yes, being strong to like take charge and all of, there's another C, to, you know, assert yourself, that kind of thing, but it's open. And then I thought of, one of the logos that we created for On Purpose with Purpose is, it's basically a C with an arrow at the end to show that it's open for you to come in, right? And they're back to back, they're always open. So basically they're C's with one side that has an arrow to show that it's like consecutive, you know, just going, and that space is open on purpose to emulate, like, you're welcome to join us. This is where you can come in. So I was just picturing the C's as being open for leadership.
Yeah. And when you said that, I wrote a C and then I put an arrow going towards it.
Cool.
But it could be going both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just added that.
In and out, like when you just said there could be one on both sides, I thought about like in leadership, right? It is listening and it is it is the responding. So it is give and take that you're open to the communication.
Yeah, that's going on my chart.
Well, I can't wait to I'm excited to hear about your talk and how that goes, because this sounds super fun. And I'm excited to go to the replay and actually take notes on all of these Cs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's just so many of them, you know, and when I first started, my 4 C's were communication, which is one we haven't talked about, communication, collaboration, creativity, and then
Critical thinking.
critical thinking, which is problem solving. You know, so those came straight out of the Common Core Standards for Education, you know, and that's where I got those for. And there's so many that it just, you know, you could go on forever, but it's a nice basis to build your, you know, your leadership program around are all those C's. And I love that the C open going both ways for communication. See, that would be a perfect one for communication, as well as inclusivity, you know, including, which is through your character and your communication. Yeah. Awesome. Well, our time is up. This has been so helpful for me. I always learn so much when I come to my OP action hours on courage. So everybody have a great day. Kelly, I'll pick you up at 11 o'clock.
You need to stop the recording.
I will.